Welcome to another Word of the Week, our weekly wow. Words for this life, words that point us to the next life, seeking lessons for our spiritual life together. And as always, written copy available on my website at the link provided. Before I begin, I want to make a brief comment. I will not be sharing a Word of the Week for the next month or so. I will be traveling to Ecuador and Colombia on a mentor trip. I usually simply say mission trip. The phrase mission trip has come to describe all kinds of activities as long as someone goes to a foreign country, playing with children, benevolence, simply fellowshipping with local Christians in other areas, along with medical missions, educational missions, and other kinds of activities. Its most biblical form, a mission trip should mean being sent to participate in God's eternal mission in this world, taking the gospel to the lost. On this trip, I will preach the gospel in multiple locations. One of my primary roles will be as a mentor, a ministry mentor, a mentoring evangelism, discipleship, a spiritual mentor, which brings us to this week's Word of the Week, this week's wow. You may know that Mentor was a character in Homer's Odyssey. Mentor was a friend of Odysseus. And when Odysseus went to fight in the Trojan War, he entrusted his young son Telemachus to Mentor. A Mentor was entrusted with the education of Telemachus. And from that literary background that goes back about 3,000 years, today we understand that a mentor is one who serves as a trusted counselor or teacher. Mentoring has arrived at the forefront of contemporary training models, probably dating back at least to Arthur Chickering's research about the effectiveness of mentoring relationships between students and faculty, almost 50 years ago, about 1969. Later studies confirmed the positive effects of mentoring. So the mentoring model entered the business world, along with the workplace and training programs in various applications. Mentoring usually focuses on personal growth and development. In the spiritual world and the world of the church mission work, mentoring encourages spiritual development, but it's also useful for developing effective skills in ministry, evangelism, discipleship, Christian living. A mentor is one who supports, advises, and guides another person. That's a primary reason for my upcoming trip and for many of my international trips. A mentor provides help in specific situations, analyzing those situations, providing counsel, orientation, and suggestions. That's what I'll be doing. I want to think with you for a moment today about the fact that each of us, in a very real sense, has a role to play as we think about our Word of the Week, that each of us can, in some sense, also become a mentor. One of the points I often share in leadership presentations is that everyone is a leader. A leader is a person with influence. All of us have influence over someone. That may be a good influence or it may be a bad influence. That's why there are good leaders and bad leaders. This week, I want to think not about leadership, but about how and where you may be a mentor, especially thinking about spiritual mentoring. Consider your spiritual influence, perhaps as a parent, a coworker, a leader, a mentor. And I share some guiding principles, biblical principles for spiritually mentoring. God's servants are formed by the gospel of God's grace. The word we share is the gospel of God's grace. And God's people are called to seek and to share the heart of God, to share the good news whereby we learn of God's grace. All of God's people then are called to bless others by sharing wisdom, by sharing teaching, if you will, by mentoring. And God's mentors help others grow in obedience to God's purpose and will in their own unique situations, their own personal circumstances. I hope you'll think about the times in your life, the places, the people where you could be an effective spiritual mentor. I ask your prayers for my travels on this mentor trip and the work to be done. I will be mentoring, sharing understanding, sharing wisdom. I will be modeling and encouraging Bible study. I will be mentoring for ministry and evangelism. And I'll be back in about a month, late August, with some new wow words. And until then, I encourage you to be a blessing in the lives of as many as you can, remembering God's love, my love for you, and the way that God wishes us to make a difference in the world where we live. See you soon.